Driver is dead after a two-vehicle crash sends one car careening into Lake Ontario. We'll have the latest on that investigation, plus a number of other crashes tonight. And
unfortunately, it took a mother of two being shot for real attention to be drawn to, community concerns around drug dealing.
a community health center opens its doors to show neighbors some of the changes they've made in the months after a local mom was killed by a stray bullet.
The quicker you're seen, the more likely you are to survive and less likely for that infection to spread.
Concern as cases of Strep A surge, some with deadly consequences. An Ottawa doctor with what you need to know.
This is CBC Saturday News.
Thanks for joining us. It has been a dangerous day on GTA roads with a number of crashes. Let's start with one that sent two people to hospital. An 18-year-old later died after his Jeep crashed into icy Lake Ontario. This was the scene on Cherry Street just before 9 this morning. Now, police say a two-vehicle crash on the lakeshore caused one vehicle to lose control, careen off the highway and plunge into those icy waters. Nearly 4 hours later, the vehicle was pulled out by emergency services, but the driver was not found at that time. Then, just after 1 p.m., police say a person believed to be the driver of that submerged vehicle was located in the same area. Paramedics did their best. They took the man to hospital where he later died. Police are now saying within the last hour that the driver was 18 years old. Now, the driver of the other vehicle involved in the crash that did not end up in the water is also in hospital and expected to survive. And another crash to tell you about, this one happening in Thornhill near Yonge Street, south of the 407. York police say at 10:20 this morning, 3 people were injured in a two-vehicle crash. A driver, a man, suffered life-threatening injuries and has since died, according to police. A passenger in the second vehicle, a woman, was taken to hospital with serious injuries. Police say no charges yet have been laid. The investigation is still ongoing. Meantime, Ontario's Ministry of Labour is investigating after an Amazon worker died this week. Last Sunday, employees had to evacuate the Amazon warehouse in London after a fire alarm went off. Now, at the time, Environment Canada was reporting wind chill values of -25 at the local airport. 30 minutes later, workers were allowed back inside, according to Amazon. One of them spent about 45 minutes in the break room warming up with other employees before returning to his workstation, where he collapsed. At this point, no other details are being released. There are growing concerns about an aggressive, sometimes deadly infection climbing to record levels across the country. According to the Public Health Agency of Canada, cases of Strep A soared more than 40% last year compared to the previous high in 2019. You may have heard the story this week, a mom from Kitchener whose daughter Quinn died just before her 6th birthday.
I don't know how to tell other people how fast it was. My daughter was sitting, watching a movie, having a conversation with her nurses, and not 6 hours later, she was gone. So I get a little bit frustrated when I read some of the articles that the doctors say that parents know what to look for and then they'll take them in when they can. And I was like, I contacted the doctors, I contacted 811. It wasn't enough. We took her in when we were supposed to, and it wasn't enough.
She says since going public about Quinn's death, she's heard from other families and they credit them with saving their lives. Roughly 1 out of every 10 Canadians who contracted the bacterial infection last year ended up dying from it. That includes at least 6 children in Ontario. Here's more from an ICU physician at the Ottawa Hospital. He's also the head of the critical care unit there.
I don't think there's cause for panic. I think it's just an important message, and as we heard from public health, for people to be aware, because one of the things that we have seen in the intensive care unit is late presentation. So one of the mainstays of treatment is early treatment, early antibiotics, early assessment, so that the quicker you're seen, the more likely you are to survive and less likely for that infection to spread. Well, the same bacteria as strep throat is the same invasive strep that we see in the group A strep that we're concerned about. And so from the strep throat perspective, really sore throat that often people are saying the worst sore throat they've had in their lifetime, and having symptoms where they're generally unwell, fever, lethargic, less responsive. And there's also from the sore throat perspective, but there's also the skin infection. So whether it's on the arm or the leg, and that's a red rash that is rapidly progressing. So going up the leg or going up the arm, and once again, really feeling systemically unwell. That being said, fever, chills, just not feeling quite themselves. And these are the cases that unfortunately more likely to land in ICU, and the reason why we want people to be seen sooner than later.
It was a random shooting that gripped the entire province this summer. A mom of two walking in her neighborhood was killed by a stray bullet. Residents say they had been voicing concerns for years about violence around a community health center. As Clara Pasica shows us, the center says it's made a number of changes, and they're inviting the community inside to see them firsthand.
This is a sample of equipment that someone would receive if they're injecting drugs. All of this is, except for the tie, is individually packaged.
Here at South Riverdale Community Health Centre, workers opened the doors of the Consumption and Treatment Service site to all today.
Our commitment to the community is deep, so we're going to keep talking to the community as we go, and we'll look forward to meeting people who might have questions for us.
Some residents say they've had concerns since the site first opened in 2017, and they've been voicing them ever since. But it wasn't until the random shooting of a neighborhood mother of two last summer that those concerns drew citywide attention. 44-year-old Carolina Hubner-Macarat was killed by a stray bullet while crossing the street just steps from the site.
Unfortunately, it took a mother of two being shot for real attention to be drawn to, community concerns around drug dealing, drug use, and violence against the community.
The site is now undergoing a third-party review, and the Ontario government has appointed a supervisor to look more closely at community concerns.
They were seeing people hanging around outside in large numbers. They were seeing loud behaviors. They were seeing more needles in the community. And they were saying that it was just general behavioral problems that they were seeing here, and they felt unsafe. And felt that the centre should be doing more.
The centre has fenced off an area to prevent groups from congregating outside, hired security, and increased sweeps for needles in the neighbourhood. A community liaison committee is now meeting more regularly to discuss ongoing concerns. This resident who lives nearby likes the changes being made now, but wants to make sure things like security aren't temporary. She was on her way to the centre's open house when CBC met up with her.
I'm committed to working with them to drive for real change.
Clara Pasica, CBC News, Toronto.
Loblaw says it heard customers loud and clear this week and will bring back that 50% discount on food that's close to expiring. Linda Ward has more now on the backlash that prompted the company to reverse course.
Well, the Loblaw policy to cut the 50% discount on food soon to expire down to only a 30% discount didn't have much shelf life, it seems. Loblaw flip-flopping on that policy, a statement saying we've listened to the feedback from our customers and colleagues and are reverting where it existed before to the 50% off discounts. In the Atlantic, we had not implemented the change and will not. In the rest of the country, customers can expect to see 50% stickers returning in the next few weeks. Now, the company saying the motive behind this was to give customers more predictability and consistency across their stores. They also said it would bring Loblaw stores in line with other grocery retailers who have been long offering only 30% discounts on food that is nearing the end of its shelf life. But that was problematic for one food professor out of Dalhousie University. Here's what he said about that.
To me, what was problematic was the motive, suggesting that it was aligning its policy with the competition. Frankly, the way I saw Loblaw's announcement was that Canadians would need to accept the fact that 30% was the new benchmark. And so we were expecting 30% across the board, no matter where you went. And to me, that's not on. That's not competition at all.
Especially with the bread price fixing scandal front of mind, and one NDP MP on the Agriculture Committee calling for an investigation into what he calls potential anti-competitive practices. Now, that professor says that it'll be interesting to see if other grocery chains follow suit and offer a higher discount, a 50% discount, not just 30%, especially with inflation high. Statistics Canada releasing their numbers for December, saying inflation year over year was at 3.4%, while grocery price inflation came in at 4.7%. Meanwhile, grocery stores are recording record profits, and there is increasing pressure for them to share the wealth and stabilize grocery prices. It certainly seems that pressure had some role to play when it comes to this latest flip-flop. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
If you're joining us from Ottawa, it's time to sharpen your skates. After nearly 700 days, the Rideau Canal will finally open for skating tomorrow. You might remember the iconic attraction was closed all winter long last year due to warm weather. Video on social media shows the team doing some final touches, getting the ice ready. The National Capital Commission says the Skateway will be open at 9 a.m. sharp tomorrow on a 1.9-kilometer stretch between the Pretoria Bridge and Bank Street. If you're looking for a snack too, Beaver Tails will be open. Just a heads up though, bring your own skate. Skate rentals are not available just yet. That sounds like a perfect day. A little skate, a little beaver tail. I'll take it all.
Me and you both, especially after a non-opening last season. Now, the ice needs to be 30 centimeters thick, as you heard there, for all of that heavy equipment that needs to go onto the Rideau Canal, along with all of the skaters and tourists. And you need to have at least a week where temperatures are below -10 to get that kind of formation. And we certainly had that the past few days. We went below -15 at least 4 times over the last 3 days. And then you also don't want a ton of snow because it insulates it. And look at that, feeling like -22 in the Ottawa region right now. So certainly a good side to this very, very cool day that we are experiencing right now. Certainly one of the coolest over the past few days. Speaking of ice coverage, we have seen a 400% increase in the ice coverage on the Great Lakes. This was last weekend. Have a look at this, barely any ice coverage at all. And then now, lakes like Erie, almost a quarter covered. We are still a long way off from where we should be this time of year with this abnormally still warm winter, but the prognosis for lakes like the Rideau looks good for at least the next week at least. We'll talk a little bit more in the long range about how we move back up to seasonal temperatures tomorrow and how we finally put an end to the snow squalls that have been plaguing many in the snowbelt regions for about 4 to 5 days. We are still watching now a pretty dangerous squall towards the London area, right around Highway 402. Still some snow squall warnings and weather advisories out for that. We'll talk about how much snow is on the ground and how much more we can see this upcoming work week in the long range. Shannon.
Okay, thanks. We'll see you soon.
You're welcome.
Patio weather may feel far off, but local restaurants are already gearing up for the season. Lane Harrison takes a look at how the City of Toronto is hoping to improve a program that faced its fair share of problems last year.
Toronto's popular Ossington Strip is a little quieter on a cold January day. But inside the Painted Lady Bar, co-owner Nikki Potter has already had to think ahead to the summer months. That's because the city has opened applications for Café TO, the popular but troubled patio program that began during the pandemic and is now permanent. Potter's Bar was one of many establishments that faced challenges. Her patio didn't open until late June, meaning she missed valuable summer weeks.
And that season is so short and so important to all of Main Street businesses that it was a little disheartening last year when it took so long for us to be able to open up.
Other business owners complained about poor communication and a lack of organization. This year, the city is promising things will be better. Barbara Gray with Transportation Services says they got a head start on approvals.
We had about 220 returning operators to the program from last year who want to come back in the same setup, and we were able to actually send them pre-approval notices in November.
Staff have worked to make the application process easier, and there will be more support for businesses working through the steps. As a result, Gray says 90% of patios are expected to be open by the Victoria Day long weekend.
Because we want this to be a very straightforward, streamlined program.
Meg Marshall is with the Ossington BIA. She sent a 4-page letter to the city after last year's Cafe TO issues. She's excited that patios will look a little nicer this year, with painted barriers and less of a construction site vibe.
Hopefully we're gone of the days of the candlestick orange pylons. I understand they're needed for setup, just for safety, but once they're in place and once people have all their fencing up, let's get them out of here and let's have really beautiful streets.
The city hasn't decided how things will look, but bright and vibrant are the goals.
If they want to take advantage of the warm weather many Torontonians are dreaming of right now, business owners will have until March 1st to apply for this year's Cafe TO program. Lane Harrison, CBC News.
You're looking live at Bathurst and College. A terrible crash there this afternoon. You can see it. A car smashed into a streetcar. It happened around 3 p.m. The driver was trapped in the wreckage before being pulled out and taken to hospital. You can see debris still everywhere as crews are sweeping up. Now, we've just gotten an update from police. The injuries to the driver and passenger are fortunately not life-threatening. Roads in the area, you can see, remain closed as the investigation continues. Hate-motivated incidents and crimes have spiked in Ontario since last October, but many in the Muslim community say incidents are still being underreported. As Patrick Swadden shows us, now organizations are launching a new cross-country tool to help fight that.
We faced a horrific attack against our worshippers on the morning of March 19, 2022.
That's when a man burst into a mosque armed with an axe and bear spray. Imam Ibrahim Hindi says that attack indicative of the hatred many Muslims face, reaching far before the beginning of the Israel and Hamas conflict.
But this is not the first time that we've seen a huge spike.
Toronto Police Chief Myron Demke reporting huge increases last month of reported hate crimes, particularly to Jewish and Muslim communities. But Muslim leaders say this doesn't tell the full story.
People think that if I report this to the police, am I risking further victimization? That's a huge problem.
And Quick says mistrust of police is leading to an underreporting of Islamophobic incidents.
This is a powerful tool to help in the fight against hate.
That tool, an app, the Islamophobia Motivated Incident Reporting Tool. Simple to use, leaders say it's meant to bridge the gap between experiences in the Muslim community and official statistics.
It allows us to identify patterns, understand the dynamics of Islamophobia, and to advocate for necessary changes to protect our community.
So these sorts of what we call third-party reporting mechanisms have become really important spaces.
Expert Barbara Perry says they give people an outlet and help document and identify trends.
So that we know, what are the parts of the country or what are the parts of a particular province or a particular city that we need to pay attention to and to provide some supports for people who are being targeted.
The app's developers say it's not meant to replace law enforcement for serious hate crimes, but to provide support.
This offers people an option. They can get guidance or encouragement to go to the police if they choose to, or simply maybe they just want to report it.
Hindi says data won't be shared, but each report will offer communication and counseling to victims. There are no plans to collaborate directly with police, but they say it could help authorities in the future.
We're really open to meeting with law enforcement, understanding, showing them what the app can do, seeing what their feedback is.
That app is now available Canada-wide. Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Mississauga.
There's a new database in the GTA to help landlords. The registry allows people to upload reviews of tenants who've been brought before the Landlord-Tenant Board. It's called OpenRoom, and it was founded by a landlord with a home in Vaughan. 2 years ago, she faced problems with a tenant who wouldn't move or pay rent.
You'll hear from landlords it's a mental distress, emotional, financial, legally, physical distress that they're going under. This pain, it's real, and I felt it, and that's why I'm so passionate about making a change here.
Now, the site is being criticized by tenant advocates who say that it could result in tenants being denied units for frivolous reasons, which they say could put more Ontarians at risk for homelessness. We're heading into a quick break now. We're back with you in 3 minutes. Well, here's a story that's music to your ears. A multi-million-dollar donation is being made to the Community Music Schools of Toronto. Now, that investment is set to make sure future generations will continue to discover, study, and play music.
It's a transformative thing. You know, music in the community, it can help save lives. And we've seen it. We've been around for 25 years in the community in Regent Park and also Jane Finch. So this is, for us, this is why we do what we do. It's collaborative and it spreads in a good way for change.
The Community Music Schools of Toronto provide free after-school music lessons to more than 750 young people in Toronto. They offer music studies and genres based on student interests, including piano, percussion, songwriting, and much more. Such good news for them, and you strike me as somebody that would have a musical talent. Sophia, is that true?
I only in the shower or when I'm in my car driving by myself, but
Yes.
I'd like to think so too, Shannon. We could do an a cappella together one day. We could sing the story of all this snow that the snow belts have been getting. Some areas have seen over the past 4 or 5 days, Shannon, 4 or 5 feet of snow. We're talking about 100 centimeters of snowfall, and we're still watching a particularly dangerous squall heading around the Highway 402 area towards London, off the Georgian shores as well. These streamers have amounted to like a foot of snow a day over the past few days, along with really intense cold temperatures. We are still seeing, well, really the coolest day of the past few days play out, feeling like the -20s across the board. It is still chilly for your Sunday morning. Then watch what happens. A southerly flow, a change in wind directions. It will finally shut off that lake effect snow machine. It will also mean a return to having a parade of systems come back up to visit us up the U.S. Eastern Seaboard. We will be bang on seasonal, though, for Sunday afternoon, along with a few weak disturbances this upcoming work week. Monday, we see, splattering of snow across the region, and again Tuesday into Wednesday, but with a warmer flavor. By the time we all see each other next weekend, Shannon, everybody will see an additional 5 to 10 centimeters on top of everything that they have right now. It's pretty green around the GTA, though, and it'll be even greener by the end of this upcoming work week because we head pretty far above seasonal. But for those of you in Ottawa, good prognosis to stay chilly enough to keep that Rideau Canal open and frozen, Shannon.
Such an
I'm
exciting
keeping my fingers
day.
crossed.
Yes, after more than 700 days, tomorrow's the big one in Ottawa. Thanks so much, Sophia.
But who's counting?
That's our show for you tonight, and there's a live look from Parliament Hill. We'll see you again tomorrow.